both still young, so what's the rush? The night is young and we not drunk enough. You'll come around if I don't do too much. We had our downs, but we had way more ups. Let's make love. That be the reason that you always hit me up. I swear, you like the way I fuck cause I get rough. You told me your new man don't make you nut. That's a damn shame. You come here, I knock your pussy out the damn frame. Remember that last time I made you miss your damn plane? Remember that last time I wet you down with champagne? Remember that? And I know I've been the worst, but I love you better if you let me. Let's catch a flight, change the weather, and I promise forever. If only I could pay the bills with my love for you, we'd be the richest in the fucking room. Hey, we'd be so comfortable. Girl, it's only you for me. No lie, I've tried what they offered. They're not who I want them to be. That's not an offer to me. If you're around, baby, when you ain't with me, you feel alone. I was wondering if you always know it don't have to be perfect. I feel like it's worth it. I know now that I've been the worst, but I love you better if you let me. Let's catch a flight, change the weather, and I promise forever. All mine, yeah. All mine, all mine, all mine.
And it's not, and so attachment, we will die without it. We don't survive without it. That's why human beings are social creatures. And so we, right, for food, for shelter, we literally cannot do anything. All of our behaviors are learned and taught. That doesn't mean there's not biological genetic bases for that. That just means that, for example, we don't operate off of instincts. Even instincts such as the maternal instinct, that is also a product of socialization. It's a product of conditioning. And we have a whole, our cisgender women, biological, our bodies are literally completely biologically evolved like other mammals to give birth, right? I mean, we have a higher fat content, especially after we mature start maturing in adolescence and puberty. We have mammary glands, that's for lactation, right? That's not, we don't have them for decoration, right? So, and yet, yeah, and when in the process of giving birth, especially without drugs, there are lots of hormones that are released. Then the specific biological evolutionary function of those hormones is to bond the mother, and in some species, they're interchanged. They'll be one sex one time, and they'll switch and impregnate themselves, and also right. So it's a whole spectrum in the natural world. And what the hormones are designed to do is to bond, right? To bond the mother with the child. The same thing with lactation. There are hormones that are released in the breast milk, or the mammary glands milk. Endorphins are released to bond. Now, it doesn't always happen. There's a lot of other things that, right, it's not, I don't want to reify that. There's postpartum depression. There's a lot of issues with all of the hormones that are running through a pregnant woman's body, and then once you give birth, then they crash. And so that can cause a lot of issues. There are also things such as gestational onset diabetes. Like there's a lot that happens, right? That could happen that complicates this. But again, just giving the point to the two fundamental universal needs of all human beings are for attachment, without which we would die. So has also been research done with our closest primary, our closest primate non-human relatives, which are chimpanzees, that it's not sufficient even for chimpanzees, and certainly not for humans, to simply be fed and clothed. We actually need attachment. We need our emotions mirrored. We need someone in sync with us emotionally. We need what's called TLC. We will die without touch. We will literally die without it, right? You can have all of the other basic needs met and you'll die without it. So attachment is literally a sort of need for survival. The second need that human beings have is for authenticity. That's the true self, right? So there's always this tension between attachment and authenticity, because we need to belong to a tribe. Being ousted from a tribe meant death. You didn't survive on your own as an individual, but we also equally have the need for authenticity. And that means that each human being on the planet has a need to express our full humanity across the board, not based and not substituting or sacrificing that based on conformity, based on pressure, based on whatever. So that's just very simply. And so that's why with ethnic studies, for this activity in particular, start out at the individual level, the reflection, not sharing it with anyone, being in your own thoughts, so you can really tune in to your true voice, to your authenticity. And then being able to share all of these open and honest and real reflections coming from you, from your authentic self, is that connection, it's that collective, right? It's that attachment. And it's how we learn, it's how we do everything. And it's got to integrate both. And so what you're going to do today in small groups, in a minute, I have gone through all of the reflections and I have entered excerpts from each reflection, including an image of an artwork that was done in response to the question on Tuesday. And you choose 1 to 3 excerpts from your reflections. These are reflections from you and your peers. And so I really want to just really encourage everyone to be mindful that the reflections are anonymous. I haven't added anyone's names onto any of the excerpts, and that these are reflections that could be an excerpt from your reflection. It's definitely an excerpt from your peers' reflections. And you all are going to be in the same groups together. So as you're sharing, as you're choosing the reflections and going through them, which we'll go through right now quickly, and then obviously you'll have access to them in your small groups, be mindful of how you discuss them, how you speak about them, right? Like this is that balance between attachment and authenticity. Like truth tellers especially are like, I'm going to keep it real. It's like, you can keep it real, and we can do that in a way that's respectful and then honors and sees one another fully. Truth is not a bludgeon. It's not a sledgehammer. That's not necessary. So I'm just wanting all of us to be mindful of this. And so the questions that you're going to discuss in your small groups is, first, you're going to look at the excerpts from the reflections. Then you're going to choose 1 to 3 or more that resonate with you as a group. And maybe it'll be each group member has a different reflection that resonates with them, and you can share out why, just the reasons why these particular excerpts resonate with you. And then there's just a table, well, a T-chart. So you'll have an opportunity to answer both of these questions and to just summarize it here for group, and it's the same for each group. Reflection excerpt that resonates with you, and you can just do a brief bullet point. You don't need to go, the reflections are based on the photos. You don't need to actually describe even though in the reflections I do describe the photos, but you can just briefly describe, oh, this is a reflection excerpt from this, photo or image, and this is the one that we chose. And then that's very brief, right? Most of the reflections really go into the reasons why. So then what you're going to also do is, obviously based on, you're going to identify the reflection, the excerpt that resonates with you. And obviously it's the reasons why the person wrote the reflection that also causes it to resonate with you. And so then you're going to be doing some further unpacking by what is it about what they shared, right? Or what you shared that resonates with you and the rest of the rest of your group in terms of, wow, this is insight, this observation, right? This recognition. Oh, wow, I hadn't thought about it that way. Or maybe I had, and this is really affirming, right? Or this is really affirming. So, right, there's no right or wrong answers. You can just do like bullets, you can add the, make sure it's ready to share in, edit. It's ready to share in edit format. So it's just a 2-part activity. And so what you're going to do is, and we'll go through these now. I have several, I referenced several reflections. And so there's slide 1, there's slide 2. And what I do is I do different color-coded colors for the text, because that designates that these are excerpts from different reflections. So this one is in one color. I believe we are all equal. We are human beings. We need to learn the truth and not be restricted like a dog in a cage. Then the text for this one is blue. So this is an excerpt from a second reflection. I chose the second photo because it looked really familiar. The students look like the homeless people that the person sees, right, in the bay. They are sacrificing their health, comfort, and safety camping out. They are united against the oppressors. So the reason why on each slide you're going to see text in different colors is because that shows and that indicates that the passage or the excerpt, which ones that they're each different reflections from different reflections. So there are 4 different excerpts from 4 different reflections here, or 4 excerpts from 4 different reflections on the first slide. There are 3 excerpts from 3 different reflections on the second slide. This is an artistic rendering. And again, you can respond to, what does this conjure up? I know when I looked at this, I'm like, oh, wow. The trees, there's this wall. There's this brick wall. But it almost reminds me of a medieval castle when I see it. And then there's these openings. But even though there's this brick wall and walls, it's like the play Fences by August Wilson, a really critically acclaimed, renowned African-American playwright from the early to mid 20th century. We build fences as much to keep people and things out as we do to keep people and things in. And what's really powerful to me, especially in light of this strike, what's really powerful to me is that this beautiful pathway, and yet there's this opening, and there's pathway through the wall, clearing the pathway, opening up a way. So it's not a solid wall. Like, this is just the idea. So right, you can totally, so that's artistic rendering. Then the next slide, there are 4 excerpts from 4 different reflections. They're in different text. And so you will have an opportunity as a group to go through each slide. I really encourage you to read through each one, and so that you can identify the 1 to 3 that you want to discuss. Does anyone have any questions before I open up the breakout rooms? And this is really intended to be a thoughtful activity. And for sure, I would say 2 or more, right? You want to get a sense, to get a full range of your insights and your thoughts, your individual insights and your thoughts that now we're bringing together as a collective body of reflections and insights and thoughts. So there's, we'll have plenty of time for you to do that. It's 12:55. And again, if there's any time, whatever, after we come back together and we debrief and share something, share out and hear from one or more group members, if there's time remaining, we will start to watch the documentary. So I'm going to go ahead and share the link to this activity in the chat. And then so everyone, please access that link. So you will be able to go to your designated group slide once I open up the breakout rooms. I've also granted permission for once you go into the breakout rooms, every single person will be able to share your screen. So for example, you can read through the excerpts from the reflections together. You can, if you choose to do to look at the artistic piece and to discuss how that resonates with you and why, right, you'll all be able to do that and at least see those slides together. And then even when you're entering your comments, your your main kind of bulleted points, and you can just kind of click up here to get the bulleted list or however you want to do it. As you're discussing, I find that it's very helpful to have at least one screen being displayed for everyone while someone else could be typing into it, or so it's more of a true group process instead of everyone just, oh, I'm just going to look at my individual screen, and just helps with the process. So there are 4 groups that I'm going to get set up. Okay, group 1 is Aaron, Shayla, Faith, Sarai, and Steve. So group 1, y'all, that I just named, you're going to go to the slide label group 1, or obviously you're going to be navigating back and forth between the slide starting at group slide 5 to slide 8 to look at those different, and that's what everyone will be looking at those. So again, please don't copy and paste. You can just briefly summarize. This is a reflection, and you can even reference the color or whatever. And then this is why it resonated with you all as a group, why the individual reflection resonates with you all as a group. Group 2 is Alexis, Christian, Japjit, Giovanni, and Stephanie. So you're going to go to the slide label group 2. Group 3 is Ashley, Ayub, Iris, and Roman. You're going to go to the slide label group 3. And then group 4 is Ava, Ellen, Estrella, and Jacob. And you're going to go to the slide label group 4. It's 12:58. I'm going to see how you all work fast. But again, there's no right or wrong way, including with how fast or whatever the pacing is. I'll check in to see how you're doing in 10 minutes. I'll check in to see how you're doing at 1:10. And then we'll go from there, I would say 10 to 20 minutes. So, and I'll of course give you a notification with the broadcast message with the 2-minute, giving you a 2-minute heads up. So I will see you in a bit. Welcome back, everyone. So you all made great progress. I'm multitasking, so I was like, oh, it's already it's emails. And I was just looking back at the documentary again, and it's actually not a super long documentary. It is a little bit more than 34 minutes. And so obviously it's going to be a slower process in terms of going, obviously you'll be able to, as you answer the questions, you read the question and you listen out for it, for the answer, right, with the documentary, you pause it. That's why it's really nice to be able to I actually already have it queued up. I went into our Top Hat course platform, And I just, when I went into that particular section, of course, I haven't once it would be helpful if I actually assigned it to. So let me go ahead because I've already opted to view it in YouTube. So that means that I will go ahead and assign this right now to everyone. And the great thing about that is, and obviously it's, let me see, it's going to be until May 5th, end of day. So I have assigned that, obviously made that available to you all on your top hat as an option. The questions are just, it's just there, I deleted the first question. And so it starts at question 2, which now needs to be the new question 1. But I wanted to at least assign it so that you can have access to it when we start viewing the film. And now, before we go into that with whatever time we have remaining, I'm really excited to learn about what you discussed in your groups and to get further, that further deeper level of even more reflection. So we don't have to start out in sequential order. Lots of input on the slides. And so, right, so it's like making sure that we can view that, which some of that will get cut off if I go into slideshow. So group 3, which is Ashley, Ayub, Iris, and Roman. Any one or more, feel free to share out the summary of then it could be one or more, reflection, excerpt from the reflection, and summarize why these particular excerpts from reflections stood out for you all.
One that we did was on slide 8 in the second box. It talked about people staying in tents and sacrificing their comfort. Yeah, that the brown one. And then I said it resonated with me because I felt that it shows a lot for them to go beyond just it, if that's something that affects them. Because they were willing to do something that directly would it's something that's shown and a lot more people would see it.
Thank you for sharing that, Ashley. I mean, absolutely. When I saw that, and even imagining that, let's say a stand state in the quad and at least there's grass. But if we're going to technically even talk about the administration, does anyone know where the administration offices are at Stand State? Which building? And you can enter it. Oh, go ahead.
Isn't it that 2-story building? I forget what they call it, but it's right behind the cafeteria or the student center.
That's MSR, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Correct and correct.
It's a 3-story, isn't it?
I'm not sure. I don't go in there. I think it is.
Because the president's office is on the 3rd floor.
It's on the top floor. So yeah, it's so funny because it's the bottom, the first level is the little coffee stand and payroll and all then the second floor is the office of the provost and some other, and there's also OIT isn't in there. And then they also have an office in the library. And that's correct. The 3rd floor is the president's office. So even the hierarchy, there's a whole way to even do the study of space and how hierarchies are built into the literal spaces that we're in. And so it's you hear about the C-suite, the CEO and all the movies that has the biggest corner office, right, in the high rise, with all of the panoramic view of this, right? So that's a power, right? That's a geography That's the literal architecture of power. So yes. And so if we were going to apply this, like actually transferring this over to Sand State, in front of the building and behind there's concrete, but like on the side where those administrative offices are, and they have windows actually looking out on like the reflection pool, there's some grass over there, not much, but it's like setting up tents like in the front of MSR where people are walking in and out, because that's what a lot, and like the visuals of that, and just, but also thinking about how do you think it would feel to like set up a tent on the concrete outside of the front doors of MSR and to camp out there? Like I think about for days on end, like I think about even as a faculty member, and certainly when I was a student, thinking about all of the traffic, other students, all the people who come to the campus, I would immediately feel self-conscious if students and other faculty and staff saw me out there. It's completely, in some ways, making yourself very vulnerable, really exposing yourself, right? Really taking a stance. And that's not ever easy. So I also like how Group 3 talked about this commands the utmost respect, regardless of political background, regardless of belief. And the fact that it's respect because it's not showing up with a semi-automatic weapon. It's not attacking, right? It's not fighting. We're here. We belong here. This is our education, just like and we are taking up this space because we belong here. It's not a question. They're not asking for permission. They're not fighting anyone. They're not attack. They're like, no, we belong here and we're taking up the space. So very powerful. Thank you. Oh my God, I see that. All right, let's go to Group 1. Group 1 is Aaron, Shayla, Faith, Sarai, and Steve. Anyone can share out, just to kind of summarize which you chose 4 different excerpts. So you can talk about any one of those.
So for our group, we chose the same thing. We did the whole whatchamacallit, the tent thing. So on slide number 6, where it kind of discusses that they were getting rid of the ethics studies class. So the students were there and they just wanted their class back because it's not only is it enjoyable, but it's educational, and it talks about the past, and it really goes into detail of like where we really came from and like how we've evolved and how we could keep moving forward and what needs to change. And these students like ethics studies for that reason. So by getting rid of it, all these students band together and they wanted their class back.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. This is so important. You know, it's enjoyable and it's educational. The main way that we as human beings have always learned, like other actual species, for the vast majority of our 200,000 years as modern human beings, is through play. It's fun. There's no reason, we learn through play. We learn through activity. We learn through, it's fun. So there's no reason, this notion that in order to be a serious academic and to be educated, you gotta be so serious and it's gotta be boring. And it's gotta be really serious and all of this gravity, and no, that's not even how we're wired. So I really appreciate that recognition. It's one that I do not take for granted as an educator, and yet it had not occurred to me. And I've seen this documentary several times, right? This is why the student, like the perspective of those of you who are students who are going through these institutions, it's everything. It's with anything. I mean, it's those, like, whatever the question or the issue or those of us who are actually experiencing this on a daily basis, who are actually going through these institutions, our voices always, those voices always need to be front and center. And they need to be centered, not faculty voices, right, but student voices. This is an institution of higher learning.
Can I add something?
Mm-hmm.
So what's also really fun about ethics studies is that it's based on experiences. You can't, I don't want to say you can't open a book on it, but you really have to experience it. It's an experience. You can't simulate the same teaching of ethics studies through a book, in my perspective.
What you are describing is holistic. It's being holistic. Obviously, it's the mind. Obviously, it's intellectually and academically rigorous because it's based on scholarship. Now, and this is an introductory class. Oh my gosh, I'm teaching the 4200 class. This class, these readings, they're at a graduate level. So, so it's right. And it is also, and this actually, I'm going to credit this where credit is due. If you've ever heard of Paulo Freire, enter one in the chat. Paulo Freire, Pedagogy of the Oppressed. He is a Brazilian educator and activist during the time when Brazil was still under dictatorship in the early 20th century. And he is the one who came up and challenged this notion of the tabula rasa, or the blank slate, that there's this one-way relationship in formal schooling with the teacher having all of the knowledge and all of the expertise, with the students sitting there and just being these, like, just pouring the knowledge into their heads. And he's like, it completely discounts not only all of the knowledge that everyone brings to any space based on whatever schooling we've had up until that point, but it also completely delegitimizes and invalidates the importance of our lived experiences. We are always learning. We are always teaching. And most learning takes place outside of the context of formal educational settings. And it's this, and so he came up with, no. We all bring all of who we are everywhere, including to the formal education places. And all of that knowledge and those ways of knowing are equally important and valid and a part of the entire kind of all of the ingredients, right, that make for true transformative learning and holistic learning, and what he calls consciousness raising. And so elevating the role of formal academic learning in a way that it actually was really practiced for thousands of years, again, at the height of societies. For example, in the Islamic world was the height of civilizations prior to colonization, especially during the time of medieval Europe, when Europe was in the Dark Ages, where you're talking about societies such as the Aztec, the Mayan, the great mound builders, if you're talking about in current day US or Turtle Islands, if you're talking about throughout Asia and all of those dynastic empires, if you're talking, right? So it's this reclamation of learning as being holistic and not just from the neck up. And it also, again, modern science is once more confirming that. If you've ever heard of the vagus nerve, look up the vagus nerve. Our intelligence as human beings is three-dimensional. It's mind, it's heart, and it's our gut. We have more receptors, and we receive more signals in our gut than any other part of our body. Our intelligence is three-dimensional. And so we've got to teach it in a holistic three-dimensional way. So it cannot just be confined to the neck up. So that's where the lived experience comes in. That's where all of the accumulated learning and wisdom and insights that we all have, we tap into that, right? We center that as much as we do the research and the scholarship, which also has its place. So thank you for sharing that. Really key points. We're going to go to group 2, which is Alexis, Christian, Japji, Giovanni, and Stephanie. Anything that you all would like to share?
I for the first one, the first reflection excerpt was it was a second excerpt. Yeah, that one. And I think it was really like we were really able to like resonate with it because it's the way how like these people like sacrifice their comfort and whatnot just so like they can stand up for their rights, and like that unity, which was really powerful.
Thank you for sharing that, Japji. It is literally the power that we have as when we come together and we unify is unstoppable. It takes time. Now, what we're speaking to is sacrifice. From that, right, that the sacrifice of their health, of their comfort, and of their safety. I mean, again, let's go back to Stan State. It's a really open campus, and that's part of what I like about it, and that's part of what makes it, because I have seen, especially during COVID, the community coming to the campus and people walking and with their strollers and riding bikes and with their dogs and, you know, and so it is this really interesting, really beautiful, I would hazard, I don't know, maybe y'all know of a place. I know of Donnelly Park, you know, I've been there. To me, the campus of Stan State with all of the water system and all of the trees and all of the just the natural aspects of Stan State, more so than anything else, it is the most beautiful place that's in a lot of ways a public space in the entire city of Turlock. And maybe there's another space, I would love to hear about it because I will go there. And so the collective, right, the unity, there's literally no greater power. It takes time. It takes sacrifice. It does. And I think about, what does that look like? What does that feel like? You know, if in this space that's really beautiful, and the space at Berkeley is also really beautiful, to be coming together and to be sacrificing in these ways. There's actually nothing more powerful than that. And part of the insidiousness of living in a time where everything is very hyper individualistic, we forget that, and we forget our own power. And when we forget the power that we have when we come together, we also forget the power that we have in and of ourselves individually. And that's really dangerous. It's really dangerous. This is when people lose hope. This is when people give up on life, literally and figuratively. And these students, it's a reminder that that's actually not the truth. So thank you for sharing that, Japji. And we're going to finish up with group 4, which is Ava, Ellen, Estrella, and Jacob. Oh, wow. You all got a lot of, you have slide 5. Look at, yeah, wow, you have a lot.
I'll go. So I put that one of the quotes that like resonated with me was the one where they were talking about the students smiling. Oh, it's the third one. Where they were smiling. Because like for me, when I was looking at the pictures, I didn't really notice any smiles. Like I didn't pay attention to it. But then like this quote kind of like pointed it out to me that they were smiling. And it just shows how like they're proud to do it. Like there's no shame in protesting and like speaking up for themselves.
Um, Thank you for sharing that. That's such a great point. And it goes back to my process of learning and standing up for ourselves and what these words that we call it, activism. I'm not belittling that. And there's something absolutely transformative and so liberating and so joyful about when we see ourselves and we honor ourselves and one another as full human beings. And it's actually, so it's not primarily anti, right? It's actually very affirming in that way. And what happens when we simply say, I am a full human being. I'm spending all of this time and paying all of this money, and I have a right to my education that I'm paying for, right? And that from like, it's actually, there's actually nothing inherently political about that. And it takes so much. I think about just what it looks like in the life to grow and evolve as human beings, even beyond the developmental phases, right, of human beings. It's so hard to do this as a young person. And that's where the unity in the collective even comes more into play, and recognizing every time we show up, we are the collective. So every time we show up as an individual, and it's this, we are strengthening the collective and the collective is strengthening us. It's fun, it's joyful, and it's incredibly freeing, right? It's like I've been to like a huge protest in Philadelphia back in 23 when everyone was seeing that George Bush was going to order the bombing of Iran that had nothing to do with war in Iran, preemptive war, when Iran had nothing to do with the 9/11 attacks, and they also did not have, I mean, it was proven that they did not have this alleged, cache of weapons of mass destruction. And this is Philadelphia, it's the East Coast. I mean, thousands and thousands of people showed up. And part of it was students from University of Pennsylvania. And they had drums, they were drumming, we were dancing, we were chanting. It turned into a big old block party. It wasn't violent, it wasn't angry. I mean, we were serious. We felt strong in our convictions because it's taxpayer money that's paying for all of this. So guess what? That means that we all have blood on our hands. Because it's our money that's paying for all of this. And that's something that I've go back and forth with in my mind a lot. Because it's simply an acknowledgement, like, right, just an acknowledgement. And not that I'm not going to stop paying taxes, because I don't want, because the IRS going to get the money one way or the other, you know what I'm saying? But like, yeah, so it turned into a big block party. It turned into a jam fest. It was incredibly joyful. Now that was in 2003. Obviously, when we get into the unit on contemporary activist movements, there's a range of, but like protests, and a lot of it is framed in terms of language around against something, but ultimately, what vision are we trying to bring into fruition? What are we trying to build? It's not, we're clearing the pathway, but the focus is on that. And that's where the joy comes from. That's where the smiles come from. Wow. I don't know about you, but I wasn't raised to speak truth to power. Not like that. It takes a long time to overcome that kind of fear. So it's a really important point. This discussion has been amazing. I really appreciate you all engaging in it 10 toes down. It's 1:43, so I apologize. We're not going to have time to to watch the documentary together. It's okay. It is assigned for you in Top Hat. It is half an hour and some seconds, 34 minutes or, and I'll fix the question order and reassign it, but you know, I'll do that later on. I'm actually meeting with the student for an advising session soon. So I just wanted to point that out, that the documentary is now available for you, and it's available from today, the 27th, until next Friday, end of day. So I will see you in class on Tuesday, when we will go into our next unit and introduce that on contemporary social justice activist movements. Have a great day.